Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to Operation Iraqi Freedom. The invasion begins, and it's been a long time since I've reacted to the operations room. And I've just been posting a new war series, I guess you could say. And this is to do with the Iraq war and what was it, like the 2000s? And yeah, I think I find this channel very fascinating. It teaches me about wars and situations in the world that I didn't know much about. I've obviously heard of to a degree. Some cases I hadn't heard of them before, but a lot of them I've heard of them, and it just sort of goes. It's pretty much just going not minute by minute, but move by move of what actually happened during these wars or the invasions or whatever. But yeah, we're gonna check this out. And yeah, links also in the description to my Patreon where you can see reactions that I can't post to YouTube. But let's check this out and see and learn about what happened during this. I think they've posted on the channel now day 1 and day 2. So this is just the start, and then there's 2 more to do. And I assume there's even more. I don't actually know how many days they'll do, but we're going to check this out and see a bit about this. It's good to have the channel back. I'm not going to lie.
6 Chinook transport helicopters start their engines at Al Jaffa Air Base in Jordan. 60 men of D Squadron, 22 Regiment SAS jump to their feet and run to the waiting Chinooks, through the swirling dust kicked up by the spinning rotors. The SAS operators board their transports, and Captain Jim Watkins settles in for a long flight ahead. He can still taste the port from his troops' good luck toast.
Oh wow.
The Chinooks lift off into the night sky and proceed across the Jordanian desert in 3 waves. Their target is a suspected chemical plant and Scud missile site in the Iraqi town of Al-Qaim. The date is the 17th of March 2003. They are taking part in Operation Roe. In 2 days, the invasion of Iraq will begin, the culmination of more than a decade of hostilities with Saddam Hussein. But first, a quick word from this week's sponsor, War.
It's secure in the bag as well. You love to see it. Secure in the bag. Get that money, man.
Saddam Hussein has been clinging to power after his defeat in the 1991 Gulf War, and his nation has become a global pariah. It is believed that Saddam is harbouring militant enemies of the West within his nation.
We are censored from saying the word T. Well, I guess he means the group that he was a part of. I say group. I think you know T. I'll just show you. We're censored from saying. I assume it is the TALB. Wait, TALIBAN word. There we go. Couldn't spell it for a second.
It is publicly claimed by some that he still maintains the ability to deploy supposed weapons of mass destruction. Today, of course, we now know how reliable these claims were. Saddam has continued to act defiantly despite his precarious position, cheering recent attacks and often barring WMD inspectors from Iraq. US President George W. Bush decides that now is the moment to rid the Middle East of Saddam Hussein once and for all. He intends to finish what his father started and depose the Iraqi dictator in a military campaign. The invasion itself is codenamed Cobra II, a nod to the Normandy breakout during the Second World War. But the public name is Operation Iraqi Freedom. The objective will be to overthrow Saddam Hussein and install a democracy in Iraq. We know today that the justifications made by politicians and government officials for the invasion of Iraq were, shall we say, less than sound. However, this series will focus solely on the actions of the young men and women sent to conduct the military campaign to invade Iraq in 2003, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and those Iraqis who defended against it. Beginning in 2002, the American president sets out to build a coalition to achieve his aim. British Prime Minister Tony Blair pledges the UK's support, but unlike in 1991, global support for military action is lacking. Key partners from Desert Storm such as France, Spain, Egypt and Turkey refuse to take part, citing a lack of hard evidence of WMDs and a belief that removing Saddam Hussein will destabilise the region. The looming invasion is controversial around the world, despite an impassioned pro-war speech by US Secretary of State Colin Powell at the UN. Regardless, Bush and his cabinet have made up their mind to attack by early 2003, and another Desert Shield style build-up begins in the Middle East. Commander of United States Central Command, General Tommy Franks, has stepped into the shoes of his Gulf War predecessor Norman Schwarzkopf and will conduct the coming operation. His staff promise that the plan will inspire shock and awe among the Iraqis, compelling them to surrender en masse like they did during Desert Storm.
Oof.
On the 17th of March, President Bush sends an ultimatum to Saddam Hussein: leave Iraq with your sons within 48 hours or face severe consequences. It is under this cloud of uncertainty that the SAS begins their secretive mission, which takes place 24 hours before Tony Blair will ask the House of Commons to sanction the invasion. The Chinooks continue to Al-Qaim, flying low across the barren desert of western Iraq. They are soon overtaken by American AH-6 Little Bird helicopters, who move to rocket and strafe suspected Iraqi positions nearby. The Little Birds are flying low to avoid radar detection. The Iraqi defenders are caught by surprise and offer insignificant resistance. Enemy machine gun nests, radars and supply depots are hit hard by quick gun runs before the small and nimble helicopters escape back into the night sky. The SAS men spot the Little Birds, their minigun barrels glowing white hot in the night sky. One operator thinks to himself, "There's no turning back. Allied forces are now committed." Having stopped to refuel en route, the first wave of Chinooks arrives at the target area after a 75-mile flight from their forward refuel base near the Iraq-Jordan border, and land at a remote position on the outskirts of the Iraqi town of Al-Qaim.
Before we get into this, you gotta say, how the hell do they edit these videos? I guess he's got a whole team that do all the graphics right, because the whole zoom-ins and you see all the detail of the towns and stuff. It's just wild to me.
The helicopters disembark the operators and Pinky Land Rovers, known as Desert Patrol Vehicles or DPVs. The plan is for D Squadron to set up an encampment and await the arrival of B Squadron, which is driving overland from Jordan in more DPVs. Together, they will assault and destroy the water treatment plant, which is also a suspected chemical weapons facility.
So they've been dropped here, landed here, now they're just being left.
See.
Jeez.
The site was also used to launch Scud missiles against Israel during the First Gulf War, and could be again. Intelligence reports that 2 full regiments of the Republican Guard are in the area, promising a tough fight ahead. Watkins and his team are digging in when a pair of headlights are seen approaching their position. The men prepare to fire, but the car passes by without spotting the encampment. Watkins and his men relax and catch up on sleep. They will spend the next day reconnoitring the plant and waiting for B Squadron to arrive. While the SAS are laying low outside of Al-Qaim, the British House of Commons officially approves the invasion of Iraq on the evening of the 18th of March.
That's wild, so they were already prepared before that.
There's still a day before the expiration of President Bush's ultimatum for Saddam Hussein to give up power, but the coalition partners are now past diplomacy. Various Special Forces teams and the CIA's Special Activities Division begin their own infiltrations across the Iraqi border, awaiting the beginning of the air offensive, A-Day, when they will call in airstrikes against key military targets and attempt to rally Iraqi citizens to the coalition's cause. In the evening, B Squadron of 22 Regiment SAS links up with D Squadron on the outskirts of Al-Qaim, having driven throughout the day without being detected. At just after midnight on the 19th of March, both squadrons move out to probe the defences around the water treatment plant. They are backed up by DPVs armed with rocket launchers and a sniper team. The SAS squadrons approach the plant's perimeter when they are spotted by an Iraqi sentry. The night sky suddenly lights up with small arms fire as the Republican Guard tries to drive the British troops away. One of the snipers quickly gets to work, seeking out targets with his Barrett 50 caliber rifle. However, a round from an Iraqi machine gun shatters the barrel and sprays the sniper with metal shrapnel. Nonetheless, the sniper coolly switches to his sidearm.
Oh wow, so the sniper gets destroyed, but the person's still all good.
And continues to fire back.
Flipping hell.
With such intense fire coming their way, the commanding officer of B Squadron orders a withdrawal back to the encampment. One of the DPV crews find themselves pinned down and are forced to abandon their vehicle as the men sprint through a hail of gunfire to safety.
Oh my days.
The DPV is destroyed by the SAS with an anti-tank rocket before they slip away into the darkness. They have suffered only 1 wounded and no fatalities. Many Republican Guardsmen have been killed, but their repulse means the SAS must try to penetrate the chemical plant the following night. At 10 PM on the 19th of March, the commander of Combined Air Forces, Lieutenant General Buzz Mosley, receives orders to launch a short-notice airstrike within the next 6 hours. Mosley is informed that the CIA has located Saddam Hussein and both of his sons with 99.9% certainty at a compound outside of Baghdad known as Dora Farms. With Saddam showing no sign of leaving the country, President Bush is keen to decapitate Iraqi leadership right after his ultimatum expires at 4 AM the following morning. Mosley quickly gets to work planning the mission before awaiting final orders from the President and General Franks. When night falls, B and D squadrons of 22 Regiment SAS again attack the suspected chemical facility in Al-Qaim, but once more find that enemy numbers are too great. Instead, they withdraw and are treated to the opening stage of shock and awe. Starting at 9 PM, the elite 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, along with 2 flights of MH-60 Black Hawks armed with Hellfire missiles and 30mm cannons, move to engage Iraqi radar and observation posts along the border with Saudi Arabia, Jordan and Kuwait. The SAW Regiment, known as the Black Swarm, splits up into 4 groups. Each flight consists of 2 AH-6 Little Birds and an MH-6 Little Bird carrying a thermal imaging system to spot targets. An MH-60 Black Hawk equipped with infrared sensors is also operating independently to support the operation. Also accompanying each flight are 2 A-10 Warthogs to engage any targets too heavily armoured for the Little Birds. For 7 hours, the helicopters and A-10s systematically destroy Iraqi installations on the border. The Iraqis offer only limited resistance and no American aircraft are lost. They turn back to base. An SAS officer recalled, "We sat in the desert watching what was a pretty impressive fireworks display." With the path clear, British and Australian Special Forces infiltrate into Iraq from Jordan, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Using both vehicle-mounted patrols and helicopter transport, these Special Operations units move to secure airfields and other valuable strategic assets. Meanwhile, the news that the US Air Force could take out Saddam Hussein has set off a flurry of activity at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. The 8th Fighter Squadron, the Black Sheep, have readied 2 F-117 Nighthawks piloted by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Toomey and Major Mark Hohen to launch by 3:30 AM the morning of March the 20th. Mosley is discussing with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dick Myers, who asks, "The President has one question. Can you get the pilots back?" Mosley replies, "I can get them to the target. I don't know if I can get them back."
Oh, wow.
There is a pause before Myers relays Bush's final order: strike. 8 minutes later, Toomey and Hohen are airborne and on their way to Baghdad to kill Saddam Hussein. Despite the short notice, General Mosley wants to give the F-117s as much support as possible and orders 3 EA-6B Prowlers from the carrier USS Constellation to jam enemy radars, while 2 F-16CJ Fighting Falcons are diverted from a patrol to shadow the stealth aircraft and destroy any SAM sites. The strike will be followed by approximately 40 Tomahawk cruise missiles from US Navy battle groups in the Persian Gulf and a submarine in the Red Sea.
40?
And AGM-86 air-launched cruise missiles from B-52 Stratofortress strategic bombers.
Oh my god.
This mission is risky. The coalition forces have steadily worn down the Iraqi Air Force and air defense capabilities over the past year as part of a bombing campaign known as Southern Focus. However, the air defences around Baghdad have not been targeted, and many Air Force officers remember the intense SAM barrages directed at coalition aircraft above the Iraqi capital during Desert Storm. The pilots have been told they must strike the target by 5:30 AM, or else their vulnerable aircraft will be silhouetted against the rising sun. At exactly 5:30 AM, the 2 Nighthawks approach Baghdad. Despite fears of overwhelming anti-aircraft fire, the Iraqi capital is still asleep, and the F-117s have not been detected. Toomey and Hohen locate the target area and release 4 2,000-pound EGBU bunker buster bombs. These are state-of-the-art satellite-guided munitions which have been designed with missions like this in mind. The EGBUs explode in quick succession, and the F-117s turn and run for the Persian Gulf. Iraqi anti-aircraft guns fire wildly into the sky, but no hits are scored, and the Nighthawks make a clean getaway. General Moseley is jubilant when told that the munitions hit precisely on target. "Bitchin', dudes, bitchin'," he exclaims to his subordinates. A few minutes later, the first of the Tomahawks and B-52 launched cruise missiles arrive to further saturate
So they've just been here, and now these Tomahawks are finally arriving. Oh my days.
the Dora Farms area. Toomey and Hohen will make it back to Al Udeid, and on landing are greeted by camera crews and ground personnel cheering them as heroes for taking out the Iraqi dictator.
God damn.
They have just won the war before it's even started.
Ugh.
However, the celebrations of victory are short-lived. Saddam Hussein appears unharmed on Iraqi state television later that day, and it is later determined that despite the 99.9% certainty of his location there, the Dora Farms compound has not been used since 1995.
Oh wow.
The decapitation strike has failed. The mission provokes an Iraqi response. Shortly after 1 PM on the 20th of March, the Iraqi military launches a Seersucker cruise missile at the Marine base at Camp Commando in Kuwait. Despite the heavy presence of Patriot anti-missile batteries, the Seersucker flies so low that it is not detected. The missile narrowly misses the headquarters of the Marine Expeditionary Force and explodes just outside the camp fence. 2 ballistic missiles are launched, but Patriots successfully intercept them. However, Saddam Hussein has sent a message that he knows the invasion is imminent. That night, SAS units outside of Al-Qaim launch one last attack on the water treatment plant, but by now, local militia have arrived to reinforce the already much larger garrison. When the SAS attack, they are greeted by another wave of small arms fire, including tripod-mounted machine guns on civilian pickup trucks. These trucks are known as technicals in military terms, and prove to be a dangerous weapon. Although they are the most elite unit in the British Army, the SAS find themselves outgunned. B and D squadrons are once again pushed back, but this time they are in danger of being overrun as they retreat. The Iraqi militia and the Republican Guard heavily outnumber the SAS and go on the offensive. They fight a pitched battle against the Special Forces operators outside of a Bedouin village on the outskirts of Al-Qaim. The rocket launchers aboard the DPVs prove vital in driving off the attackers and inflict casualties on the enemy as they attempt to overrun them. After hours of fighting, the Iraqis withdraw, but the SAS commander is informed that a convoy of 20 Iraqi military vehicles are looking for his unit. Knowing that storming the complex would result in unacceptable casualties, the commander instead orders an airstrike to destroy the facility.
That's one way to
As
do it.
dawn breaks on the 21st of March, 2,500 pounds of munitions are dropped on the area while the SAS retreats into the desert. 2 operators will receive the Military Cross for their actions outside of Al-Qaim. The events of this day force a major change to the overall plan for Iraqi freedom. The date for the invasion, G-Day, had been set for the morning of the 22nd of March, in concert with the start of the air war. However, General Franks and leader of the ground offensive, Lieutenant General David McKiernan, fear that the now alert Iraqi government will conduct a scorched earth policy and destroy their country's infrastructure to halt the invasion. Maintaining Iraq's infrastructure is a key priority for the coalition leaders. As such, the decision is made to move the land invasion up to the night of the 20th of March. Unlike Desert Storm, the ground attack will now begin before the massive air offensive. The bulk of the forces involved in Iraqi freedom will attack into Iraq from Kuwait. The governments of Turkey and Saudi Arabia are sympathetic to the coalition cause, but both have refused to allow ground troops to use their countries as staging areas. With most coalition forces in the south, a rapid advance to Baghdad is required to topple the regime as quickly as possible. On the left flank, Lieutenant General Scott Wallace's 5th Corps represents the main axis
Is that Poland there as well?
of advance, and will push through the Tigris-Euphrates Valley and destroy any Iraqi units they encounter. The key armoured capability of 5th Corps is the 3rd Infantry Division, fielding M1A2 Abrams tanks, M2 Bradley fighting vehicles, and M109 Paladin self-propelled howitzers. supporting them as ground infantry, the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions. Altogether, 5th Corps will field 247 Abrams, 264 Bradleys, and 132 artillery pieces. The 101st will provide the bulk of the helicopters, with 151 Apaches, 52 Kiowas, 62 Chinooks, and 178 Black Hawks supporting Wallace's divisions.
What?
On the right flank, one Marine Expeditionary Force will again go toe-to-toe with Saddam's forces after taking part in Desert Storm. The MEF is comprised of the 1st Marine Division and 2nd Marine Expeditionary Brigade. A total of 50,000 men and 10,000 vehicles will move to capture Iraq's southern oil fields and the port of Qasr, before also turning north to attack Baghdad. The 1st Marine Division is commanded by Major General Jim Mattis and is equipped with 120 Abrams tanks. The UK 1st Armoured Division will move to cut off and capture Basra, the most important city in southern Iraq, with 166 Challenger 2 tanks, 236 Warrior infantry fighting vehicles, 66 Scimitar light tanks, and 36 AS-90 self-propelled artillery pieces.
There's so many different things.
In addition to those already infiltrating into Iraq to conduct recon patrols, combined special forces from the coalition nations will launch amphibious assaults against the Al-Faw Peninsula and offshore oil rigs to seize crucial oil installations in the south.
So they're going for it all, man.
250 Navy SEALs from the United States, a brigade of Royal Marines from the UK, and 126 Polish Grom commandos are tasked with securing Iraqi oil infrastructure. In the north, special forces have been steadily trickling into Kurdish-controlled areas for over a year to organise an offensive against Saddam's regime. Rather than a northern front established from Turkey, the Kurdish Peshmerga will handle the bulk of the fighting to tie down Iraqi units. The United States is providing 706 combat aircraft, while the British contribute 68, and the Australians a squadron of 14 FA-18 Super Hornets. Altogether, 309,000 coalition troops will invade, supported by just over 1,200 aircraft, including 790 fighters and bombers. It is less than half the total of the combined forces which took part in Desert Storm.
Less than half? God, that makes you realise how many were involved in that then.
The US Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld has purposefully kept the number of troops low. To him, this campaign will be carried by American technological superiority and aggressive commanders on the ground, who are told to avoid large population centres. Under Rumsfeld's doctrine, there should be no need for a larger invasion force. Facing the coalition is the Iraqi military, which on paper is still a serious threat. 300 to 350,000 ground troops are organised into 16 divisions in 5 corps. However, 2/3 of the Iraqi army is composed of untested conscripts, while the rest of the ground forces are equipped with outdated Soviet-era weaponry. The 70,000-strong Republican Guard once again represents the backbone of Saddam's military. They are organised into 6 divisions and have much better equipment than the regular army. Altogether, the Iraqi military has around 2,000 tanks, 3,700 APCs, and 2,300 artillery pieces. Yet most of this strength exists only on paper, as the Iraqi military as a whole is in a far worse shape than it was before Operation Desert Storm. The coalition far outnumbers the Iraqi Air Force, which is believed to have 300 mostly obsolete combat aircraft.
Oh, well there we go.
At 9 PM on the 20th of March 2003, the ground offensive starts with a short but sharp artillery barrage from 155mm guns of the 15th Regiment of the US 3rd Infantry Division. After 20 minutes, 1st and 3rd Battalions moved to clear Iraqi border guards from the massive sand berms which mark the boundary between Kuwait and Iraq. 3rd Battalion encounters machine gun fire coming from 2 observation posts, but both positions are quickly neutralised by Bradleys and Abrams. Armoured tractors then move in to bulldoze holes through the berms so the mechanised units can cross the border. It is not long before the channels are cleared and the invasion force moves into the openings. Now at the tip of the spear of the 1st Marine Division are the 374 men of the 1st Reconnaissance Battalion, rolling into Iraq in a convoy of 70 Humvees. First recon is ordered into the breach early on the 21st of March, with Sergeant Brad Colbert in the lead Humvee. Day is breaking as Colbert notices that his rear gunner, Corporal James Trombley, has fallen asleep as they cross the Iraqi border.
Oh, wow.
Colbert taps Trombley on the shoulder.
Is that just due to exhaustion, I guess? As you're about to enter, you're falling asleep, and you're about to enter, like, I guess they're going, like, I don't know if they're, going straight into battle, but, jeez.
To rouse him from his sleep. Wake up, Trombley. You're missing the invasion. The convoy continues into Iraq, with Marine
wild.
Cobras flying overhead. Follow the links to...
Oh, there we go. It stops here for now. We'll, I guess, move on to day 1 tomorrow. Yeah, see, I don't know much about this. I obviously know about this war. It's a war that's in my lifetime, so I mean, it's definitely one I know a bit more about. But even then, I'm not fully aware of the ins and outs of it, so it's going to be an experience to fully learn about it. I know it was obviously a controversial one. All wars are, but I feel like this one was a lot more controversial. But yeah, that's pretty much it for now. Till next time, like, subscribe. Peace.